Happy, spooky, creepy,
Spooky, goofy comic shenanery.
goofy, spooky season. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's been a busy weekend.
Yes.
Baltimore Comic Con was on Friday, and it's been my first and only convention. No, that's a lie. I went to a convention in March. Oops.
Yeah. Whoops.
But it's been my first convention since March. So, yeah, my body is tired. I am sore. I'm realizing that as I get older, that I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Yeah. I went to Rose City last month in early September and went all 3 days. And I was like, oh, like it should be easy. I'll just go ahead and I can do the show that Sunday. It's easy. Like I'll literally just walk around and do, doing the show Friday, doing the show Saturday, and then doing this show on Sunday. I'm like, dang, I'm tired. So I feel you there. Like it wears you out.
It does. It definitely wears you out, and it doesn't help when you're carrying around stacks like this, which I'll go a little bit more in depth with some of the goodies I picked up later on in the show, because Baltimore is a time for me to spend dumb bitch money and replenish my collection.
Yep, that is the one nice thing about going all 3 days, where it's I don't know, it feels like, well, I'll just grab some other stuff tomorrow. I don't need to grab everything on the first day. But if you're like, I'm only going to go one day, you're like, I have to do everything. And I was telling you a little bit about backstage. I went to a little comic swap here called Frankenstein's Comic Swap here in Portland, Oregon. And it's a lot of, I don't want to say like resellers, but people just selling their own collection. Not really like big dealers or anything like that. But I bought a huge I had a huge bag, and it was full of stuff by the time I left. Scott, who's in the chat, can attest to this. I felt like I was dragging this bag around just from picking up what felt like a couple of books. So it wears on you.
It does. It wears on you. And this year was especially special because it was the first year that I was at Baltimore Comic Con as an official press pass holder for Casually Comics. And it was weird because I had a little name badge, had my name on it. I got to go to a special line. People in the halls noticed that I had a little press badge. And I'm like,
you got to meet some people in the community. Who'd you get to meet?
I did. I got to meet some people in the community. I got to meet our friend Gabby, the fantastic girl. I see her every year because we actually live in the same state, and I never even realized it, that we're so close yet so far away. And then I finally got to meet Nathalie, who's the comics queen, and that was I think we both shed a little bit of a tear because Nathalie's probably one of the first people, definitely one of the first women that I met in our community, and we just kind of bonded. And to see her working with Shortbox and doing all the things that she's doing with Behemoth and Hot Topic, it's insane to see her living our dream. It's you did it, you made it. And then just, I said, just being able to finally meet these people, and I'm gonna sound weepy and emotional, but to finally hug somebody that you've spent so long talking to, it's I hope y'all are ready for the day when me and Jen meets, because I'm just gonna cry for 40 minutes straight. I'm gonna cry 40 minutes leading up to the meeting, and then 40 minutes post to the meeting, and then 40 minutes into the meeting, and it's just gonna be a weepy time.
Be prepared, because not only are we going to be emotional babies and just so excited to meet each other, I know that you and I are going to be just absolute menace gremlins.
We're going to be comic gremlins, comic trash monsters.
Can you imagine us going to a convention together and just, I don't think they're ready for us.
Brian Azzarello, are you ready to fight this tiny gremlin in a Denny's parking lot? We need to know. The world needs to know. That'll be you.
Rick Remender, I'm coming for you.
Rick Remender, we're coming for you.
I haven't seen Rick Remender go to any conventions, so
because he knows you'll find him, and he's scared to fight you in a Denny's parking lot.
Yeah. Well, it is spooky season. Today we're going to talk about news. We're going to talk about spooky books. We're going to talk about our regular weekly reads, which I'm excited to talk about. But first, it is. And before, I want to say hi to some people in the chat. So if you're in the chat, if you're lurking, if you're just kind of hanging out, please say hi. I want to shout you out just a second. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I'm going to stand on my soapbox, because this little soapbox is something that I have. I want to just give a shout out or give a my heart goes out to lots of friends back in Florida, my like trans and queer friends back in Florida. Over this past week, the medical board of medicine voted to basically recommend detransitioning teens, trans teens who are already in transition, who have already begun transitioning, as well as kind of like banning gender affirming care for trans youth. And that's just, it's stupid, it's ridiculous. And as much as I'm over here on the complete other side of the country saying, well, that's stupid, I know that a lot of other people are grieving, a lot of other people are making like plans, a lot of other people are just thinking about their place in the world right now. And I want to say to every single one of you, you have a place, it's here. The world is better because you're in it, and we want you in the world as you are. So please be here with us. And my heart goes out to every one of you. So just had to stand on my soapbox and just say, I hate Florida.
The reason why we have a soapbox.
Exactly. Anyways, thank you everyone for being here. I want to say hi to some people in the chat. First off, we've got Scott. Hello. One of my Portland friends. Let's see. And they are first in the chat. And then Niall. Hello, everyone. One of our other friends, Carrie, officially unofficial geek. Hello. And our friend Miss So. We don't really get to see you very often. And I don't know if it's always this, but you've got a little Elvira icon. I absolutely love that. I am right now about 75% through her biography, her autobiography. And it's amazing. So good. Another friend, we've got John here. Sorry I'm late. Scott and I were commiserating about losing Henry Cavill on The Witcher.
All right, I'm gonna go on my soapbox. Hold on, I want my soapbox. It's my soapbox time. All right. Niall, close your ears, because I'm sorry you had to deal with this all day yesterday. You got to deal with it again. It's fine. What the actual fuck? Listen, the only thing that I want in this world is Henry Cavill in tight leather pants and his little loose-fitting fantasy shirt going, fuck. And you took it away from me. Like, this is literally the role that he was born to play. And the only thing that I cared about, and you're taking it from me. Like, here, hashtag hear me out. If this is the sacrifice for getting him back as Superman, because spoiler, that is a thing.
Yeah.
If this is the sacrifice it takes to get him back as Superman, I don't want Superman.
I don't want Superman.
I think he's a perfect Superman. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's even more perfect as Geralt. And I'm sad. I'm gonna start crying again. Thanks, John.
Yeah. So I know okay, I'm gonna shelf this. I want to say hello to the rest of the people in the chat. We are going to talk about this, and even though I don't necessarily have a lot of opinions, I have some opinions on Witcher. I'll get into that. We're going to talk about this in just a moment. We're going to choose violence.
I have a lot of opinions on Henry Cavill. It's fine.
Henry Cavill and The Witcher. Hello to Paul Haddon. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate that. Let's see. Our friend Sanimation. Good evening, everybody. I saw a little bit of the show that you were doing last night. Today, she's over in Europe, so different time zone. But I saw some of The Crow. There was a couple other things I saw too. Just absolutely love your picks. Let's see here. Manic23. Hello. Let's see. Okay, I think that's like everyone in the chat. Everyone's kind of like chit-chatting in the chat, which is excellent. But let's go ahead and start off with like news. This news dropped yesterday, right?
Sure. I don't know if you noticed the comment I highlighted.
Oh, the only thing I have on Henry is a crush. Ooh. Yeah. Would like to have more on Henry, or more Henry on me. We'll see. Henry Cavill, if you're listening.
All right. Let me make a confession. Let me make a confession as to how much I love Henry. So I've loved Henry Cavill since I was 13 years old, and he was the young boy in Count of Monte Cristo, which my mom took me to see.
Wait, what? Hold on. Count of Monte Cristo?
He's his son. He's Count Dumas's son.
What the fuck? I love that movie. I love that movie.
Fun facts. So yeah, I've been in love with Henry Cavill since then, And then that love only increased when he was always Stephenie Meyer's fan cast to play Edward Cullen in Twilight. And then he came out as Superman. And I've just kind of loved Henry Cavill my entire life. And I have kind of a scary, kind of creepy confession to make. I have a life-size standee of Henry Cavill as Superman that I stole from Walmart during the Man of Steel release in my closet. It used to hang on my wall, but as soon as I started dating somebody, I had to take it down. So
Put
now
it up.
it's just in the closet.
You've got to establish your dominance.
No, I have
and
to
this
be.
is how you
no,
do
no,
that.
I have to be fair. I have to be fair.
No, you
Henry
don't.
Cavill, he's in the closet. However, everybody knows that if Henry Cavill shows up at my doorstep today and says, "Hi, do you want to run off with me and get married?" The answer is a very heavy yes.
I am going to buy a silver blonde wig for you to put onto Superman so you could dress him as Geralt.
Listen, it's not even the wig, it's just Henry. Like, he's just a man and he's a nerd. And I feel like him being a nerd intensifies it. The fact that he reads comics, he plays Warhammer, he plays D&D, he builds PCs. I'm like, hi, I'm here. I'm not available, but we could work something out.
You know, monogamy's not real, but honesty is. That's my motto.
Honesty is.
So here's the thing, in case you didn't know, like, what we're talking about, we're not just like talking about Henry Cavill, Superman, The Witcher. So what happened with The Witcher? I mean, we could, if you watch our show, you know that we do get that ridiculous. But basically what happened is that Henry Cavill said, or the news came out that Henry Cavill is no longer going to be playing The Witcher for Netflix. He is now going to be replaced by Liam Hemsworth, which I haven't seen a single person be like, "Yay, Liam Hemsworth!" Which, whatever, I don't really.
No, because he was the perfect role, and like, let's be honest, they did get the best option to replace Henry Cavill because they got the one man that is used to being second best at everything, and that is Liam Hemsworth.
100% the lesser desirable. But, you know, even with that, one of the things that I have been reading about all of this is that it sounds like we don't know why this happened. I can speculate and be like, well, maybe it's because he is going to come back into the DCEU as Superman.
There's rumors that he's not happy with the way that the show's going. That apparently the books aren't the best, and they want to stay true to the books, but they want it to adjust stuff, and Henry wants to adjust stuff, because that's another reason why Henry Cavill is perfect for the role of The Witcher, because what a lot of people don't realize is that when he would be filming, because he is such an avid fan of the series, while filming, he was always on set, whether he was filming or not, and he would help the creative team make adjustments that was more accurate to the books, or maybe things that would make sense, and that just comes from him being such an avid fan. I definitely feel like we're going to see a shift once season 3 ends and we go to season 4, because we won't have that extra point of creative input going into it.
Yeah, that was one of the most like disappointing things about this news, is that from what I read, like I said, I don't know whether or not there was like, okay, well, there's going to be scheduling conflicts. I can't both film and be on set for The Witcher as well as film and be on set for Superman. So I've got to choose one or the other. But it sounds like, from what I've read, Henry Cavill has advocated for more book accuracy. And one thing that I was reading, which made me want to go and read the Witcher books, which I haven't done, is that apparently in the books, the character Geralt is like an amateur philosopher, I guess, that he is a lot more wise and is a lot more intelligent than the show puts off. Like, I think that you can have that like strong silent type, which the show portrays, but apparently in the books he's more talkative, he's more inquisitive, and he wanted to bring that and they didn't do that. So I don't know. I hope that maybe what this might mean is that maybe Henry Cavill can play another like nerd in something else and not just Superman. Who would you like fan cast him as, other than The Witcher, other than Superman and the Count of Monte Cristo's son?
And the Count of Monte Cristo's son. I already have my dream casting for him, but that's gone because Sony is stupid. And listen, there's reasons for this casting, not just the obvious ones, but mostly the obvious ones. I would like to see him as Kraven the Hunter.
Oh,
And not just because I want to see him run around shirtless with a lion's pelt draped over him.
100%. Okay, you know, I was thinking the way that I heard about like this, how he wanted to bring that book portrayal of Geralt to the character. Like I was thinking, okay, what are some other like wise, strong types that he could be? So I'm like, oh, could he play like a Hellboy type character or
Ooh.
something like that? But now that you say scantily clad, so like the other needs and desires, the pyramid of needs. I need him to play something like that, and now I'm trying to think like, would I want him to play like Swamp Thing?
That's a way to get me into Swamp Thing.
How are you not already into Swamp Thing? Swamp Thing is literally the perfect package.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
well, anyways, so that's the news about The Witcher, Henry Cavill, Superman. So we'll see. Speaking of the like DC EU, a movie came out this week, last week,
This week.
this week. Did you watch Black Adam?
Hell no, I did not. What do I look like? Listen.
Well, who do I look like because I watched it? But
I'm
tell me why you
here.
refuse.
I'm not here to watch a Dwayne the Rock Johnson sausage fest. Like
I like, you know, I love a good sausage fest. Both like literally, like I would go to like if there was like a hot dog eating contest, I'm there. If there is a literal like sausage fest of like just dudes, I'll watch it depending on the context.
I would have been more happy if this was just like a straight up Justice League Society or Justice Society of America movie,
Mhm.
because I really like some of the supporting cast that they have in Adam Smasher, Dr. Fate, obviously my boy Hawkman with
Cyclone.
perfect casting. I need a whole movie with him, and I haven't even seen his performance yet, but I know I love him. But yeah, I just have no desire to see it. So
I am here to tell you that this was probably one of my favorite DC movies to watch. One, I could actually watch
to
it.
be
It wasn't
fair, the bar is not very
the bar
high for that.
100%. The bar is really low, but I think that that's, you know, that's part of it. A lot of the plot felt very simple. Like this wasn't a overly saturated, convoluted movie. I thought that it had a simple plot, which I think DC needed to do, especially when I think about like shit shows like Suicide Squad that just had like 5 different plots that kind of went nowhere. The plot of Black Adam is that in what is it? Is it Khazar? Wherever he's at,
Candog?
the Kandok. Thank you. It was they were enslaved and basically made to work for the elite people, and then Black Adam gets superpowers basically and ends up being like a champion for the people, but gets defeated. And what is it? Kazakh? Is that it? Ends up being ruled by like colonizers for centuries when Black Adam comes back. And some of the plot felt very much like Indiana Jones. Like, I'm an amateur, oh my God, what do you call it? Archaeologist, and I can read this ancient language, and this is what the ancient language says on the stones. And this is what we need to do. So part of it was like a very, very simple plot, but this one of the like perspectives that I have of this movie is that I needed it to be simple. I needed it to be just like 2 brain cell movie. And I went into this movie not completely sober because I had a drink before I went in, but it was good.
I'll have to check it. I'll check that one out.
My
Probably
only
when it comes to streaming service.
when it's on HBO Max, I would highly recommend that. My only complaint, so we know that Black Adam is played by Dwayne The Rock Johnson, or Dwayne Johnson, because he doesn't go by The Rock anymore. But there's a moment where Black Adam is trying to understand modern culture. He has a young person by him who's like explaining like, oh, that's a TV, or like that's what this is, that's what this is. Oh, you're a superhero, you need a catchphrase. And Black Adam, part of the humor of the movie is like, oh, should my catchphrase be like lights out bad guys, like that's just an example, but like trying to figure out what his catchphrase is, and they missed, in my opinion, a big misstep that they took was not being like, everybody has a catchphrase, even The Rock, can you smell what The Rock is cooking? And they didn't let Black Adam say, can you smell what The Rock is cooking? And whether for licensing or whatever, they didn't use that. And that's my like one.
That's your one gripe.
That's my one gripe, which, to be fair, I usually trash movies. And to be fair, if that's my one gripe, it's not a bad movie.
I have to highlight this comment because when it came up, I started connecting dots in my head, and I feel like Charlie Day right now with the little board. So I guess that is kind of like a nice segue into a bit of news, is that it was revealed this week that James Gunn is going to be spearheading the DCEU, which is a very good thing because he has, I'm going to be controversial here because I know there's going to be a lot of people that don't agree with me, but he made the best movie that DC has seen in probably the past 30 years with the Suicide Squad being
Squad 2.
No, the Suicide Squad. You got to put the in front of it. Come on, man. So,
you're right.
So with the Suicide Squad, it's definitely my favorite superhero movie. I know I'm biased. But it's exciting because it means that I would like to think that a lot more smaller characters will slowly make their way onto the big screen. And that made me connect dots in my head because him and Gail Simone have been tweeting back and forth an awful lot about the Secret Six. And if James Gunn is now in charge, does that mean that we are one step closer to the Secret Six movie?
Listen, anything that Gail Simone has done, I think I want to see it adapted.
Are we a step closer to the Secret Six movie?
I want that so bad. But I also, I want so many things for DC. I want New Gods. I want New Gods so fucking bad. It hurts. And it hurts that Ava DuVernay didn't get to do it. I don't know if they'll go back on that. Do you think that part of this plan, because we don't get to see everything as obviously we don't get to see what DC and The Rock is cooking behind the scenes, but maybe do you think that they would bring a Batgirl Birds of Prey movie, and that's why they scrapped the other one?
Absolutely
that maybe
not,
it would
because
be
because we already know it's a tax write-off. We're giving them too much credit.
You're right. I'm not saying that I'm smart, but I know that they're not this smart.
Yeah, you're very smart, but they're not, and they've already shown their cards.
So yes, James Gunn and someone else, I can't recall their name, but the two of them are kind of like spearheading the DC movies as well as TV shows, or is it just movies?
I think it's both.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting. I think that they do need their Kevin Feige.
They're Kevin Feige. Somebody posted on Twitter, and I think it's fitting and it's hilarious that Kevin Feige literally raised James Gunn up and created essentially his own arch nemesis, which I think is perfect for comics.
Yeah. Isn't that like one of the prophecies where the father kills or the son kills the father? I just imagine that getting deep here. I just imagine something like that's going to happen. Is that is
this going to be the turn where we finally see DC get ahead of the crowd and Marvel kind of fading away? Probably not, because even though we have James Gunn, we still have all those dumbass Warner Brothers executives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what other news do we have?
I don't have news. I have fun spoils from Baltimore Comic-Con, along with some feelings about a certain publisher that was at Baltimore Comic-Con and did some really stupid stuff.
Ooh, you do. One of the other things really quick before we get into that violence, I want to talk about in Baltimore, there was also the Diamond Retailer Summit where a lot of those publishers have announced new projects. And it's really, really exciting because this is the first Diamond Retailer Summit that we've got since post-pandemic, really. And since DC and Marvel have stepped away from Diamond. For those of you who don't know, Diamond is a distributing company. So they're basically the middle person between the publishers and the comic book shops. So they are responsible for the logistics and kind of getting those books to the comic book shops. And Marvel and DC in 2020 and 2021 stopped distributing their books through Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
And so just the small companies were left. Boom Studios, AWA, Source Point Press, a couple other ones. They all like announced some new projects. Some of them are like, hey, we're doing bigger and better things. We've got this like big 10-year plan. Other ones were like, hey, we're scaling back a little bit, but that means that we can also do some other projects. I'm surprised you didn't, if you hadn't seen this one. Dan Didio and Frank Miller talked about Frank Miller Presents. And Dan Didio said something about, for some reason, readers stepped away from reading comic books. And I'm surprised you didn't see this, because I just imagine you being like, Dan Didio, why did they step away? Dan Didio, why are readers not here anymore? Why do people not like superhero movies?
Wait a minute. Whoa. Pause. Dan Didio was talking about people stepped away from comics. Is he talking about specifically like the big two or comics as a whole?
I think in his perspective, they're probably one and the same. I think that at the time he was doing what he was doing, there really weren't too many indie publishers that had as much of the market as they do now. So I think to him, the big two and comics.
Yeah. Well, hear me out. Because if that's the case, if he's saying that people are stepping away from comics, then why is it that comic sales within the past 3 years have gone up exponentially? We now have more comics in the direct market than ever before. We have now more comics in libraries than ever before. We have more casual readers reading comics more than ever before.
Casually reading and casually chatting about comics.
Casually chatting, more YouTube shows, more podcasters, more journalists. Dan Didio, you know what? Square the fuck up. We're going to fight in a
Denny's parking lot.
No, not in a Denny's parking lot.
Reserved.
That's reserved. Niall said we were going to fight in a certain parking lot. I don't remember what it was. It might be a Waffle House parking lot. I don't remember. Niall, if you're here, tell me what you said the other night about which parking lot we're fighting Dan Didio in, because I'm getting ready to square up with this man. Somebody needs to put me in direct contact with this man again, because
or not, because there will be a restraining. Yeah, you will be in contact because there will be a restraining order.
I just need to have some choice words with this man. I've already had choice words with this man before. But we need to talk. And that's another thing. Jay brings up manga. Manga is technically comics. Look at the manga market. Look at how huge that is. Yep.
And I can, from
When's
my
the last time this man ever read a comic?
100%. Like, manga is the comics market we see is getting bigger and bigger. Like, every report that we're seeing is that not only are single issues kind of like, they're holding their own, but then also the trade paperback market and like those larger novels, those ones have a bigger share in the market. Comics are growing and growing and growing, which is excellent. But I think that to Dan Didio, people did step away from superhero comics, but I think it's because of fucks like him.
The reason why they stepped away from superhero comics is because he decided that in the peak millennial age, he was going to cater to the old white men that were still stuck in the fucking 90s.
And so
by also hiring everybody who was still stuck in the 90s and failing at it.
Yep. Dan Didio, the call is coming in from inside the house.
The call is coming from inside the fucking house, Dan.
Yeah. So, and to Bizarro Fett, yes, Frank Miller Presents got the rights back to Ronin, so it sounds like they will be publishing more of that. Yep.
I found the quote, and it says, "We've lost a generation of readers. They didn't buy superhero books; they went elsewhere. Probably because you weren't publishing anything half decent."
Why did they just? Think about it for a second, Dan Didio. Why did they go elsewhere? Why do you think they went elsewhere?
Stay tuned for the aftermath, where Mars talks for a whole hour about the failure of the New 52 and how the New 52 almost ended DC Comics as we know it.
Yeah. Whew. So thank goodness him and Frank Miller are doing some good things over at Frank Miller Presents, right? They deserve each other. So to your point about publishers just making stupid decisions, and sorry, go for it. Just here's some violence.
Here's
from
some
Mars.
violence, and
Here's
then
the
I'm gonna
Mars
do.
violence.
All right,
Go
here's
for
the
it.
violence, and then I would like to do, before we start talking about books, I would like to do a palette cleanser after the fact, where I show off all the fun stuff that I got. I need that palette cleanser.
Yes, please.
All right, here we go. Hear me out. So, I was at Baltimore Comic Con this weekend, and apparently, Bad Idea had a small little booth. At that booth, I sent you pictures of it. At that booth, there was a TV screen, there was logos for Bad Idea, and there were 2 cardboard cutouts of who I'm assuming are the creators of Bad Idea.
Can I preface this really quick? For those of you who don't know who Bad Idea is, Bad Idea was a publisher that literally right before the pandemic started doing this, these shenanigans of gimmicks. So one of the gimmicks that they started with was, hey, we're Bad Idea, we're a new publisher. Where if you go to this link and press the red button, once we get to 1 million presses on this button, we're going to announce something. And okay, it's gimmicky, whatever. And then some of the other gimmicks that they were doing is that they went to shops and said, we are only going to work with very specific shops during the pandemic. Here are some rules for carrying our books. If you or one of your customers breaks one of these rules, you're out. You can't carry Bad Idea in your shop. They were selling, I think about ENIAC, that and they also said, we're not going to do
no trades, no second printings, no collected issues, nothing.
Yep. And you can only sell 1 book per customer. Customers, if they are the first to buy the book, they're going to get a little token. These tokens, we'll see what they get redeemed for. So they just pulled a lot of shenanigans. The books, in my opinion, were pretty good books. I wasn't disappointed with a lot of the stories, and I wasn't necessarily mad at Bad Idea for doing any of these things, because at the end of the day, we're still talking about Bad Idea. It's still getting people into the comic book shops. But then this is what they pulled at Baltimore Comic Con. And now I just wanted to preface it. Tell us what they did at Baltimore Comic Con.
So they had their little booth. They had little standees of themselves that said, hey, tweet at us with hashtag this, with a selfie of ourselves or of yourself, and then come back at a very specific time. And when I say very specific time, it was 15 or 30 minutes during the show, 4 to 4:30 or 11 to 11:30. It was really weird times. And you'd have to come back and you would get a copy of issue 1 of one of their new books. And I'm here thinking to myself, this is stupid, but people are going to do it because you know that people are going to want to flip these books. Whatever, you do you. Well, then I get home and I see people posting about the stuff that they got, and Bad Idea specifically posting about the things that they were giving out. They were literally giving out books that had the name of the cover, or the name of the comic on the cover in big letters, but it would be something
Orc?
This is not Orc Island. And then when you opened up the book, it was blank. There was no pages, no nothing. It was just white, empty space. And hear me out. I need to have a discussion because it really just tickles my pickle, and not in a fun way. Tickles my fucking pickle. Because these are 2 men that obviously have money to burn and to spend on really stupid gimmicks and shenanigans. Okay, it's your money. But at the end of the day, this is comics, and comics are a very niche market. It's a very communal market. It's all of us having to work together for the greater good, basically. Why not take that money and invest it into women of color, people of color, queer people, anybody who's a marginalized voice that might not normally get selected to write a book on the market? Why not take the chance on these people and put your money where your mouth is and actually make comics a better place, rather than doing this stupid garbage shit that I can't say is going to end up in a landfill because idiots are going to be on eBay selling it for God knows how much money, which is even more money wasted in the comic book market. And it frustrates me because, like I said, we're such a niche market. We are such a tight-knit group. Everybody knows everybody in the comics community, in the industry, so why not uplift voices rather than give yourself 2 days of fame?
Yeah. And that's kind of what it has felt like with Bad Idea, is that they'll do these things. They spend so much time trying to figure out like, well, how can we do this thing? Let's get talked about, whether we're talked. And then even what they did last year is that they made a big deal about being like, bad ideas over. And
yeah,
everyone
and now
kept
they're
saying,
bad idea too.
Everyone kept saying bad idea is going away. They pulled all this gimmicky stuff and now they're going away. And I was like, all they've done is gimmicks. This is another gimmick here. And
sure enough,
gimmicks.
It was a gimmick. I'm just tired of the smoke and mirrors. I want to see more publishers like Volt and like Mad Cave that are doing the damn thing and that are giving creators the opportunity to grow and go into, further their career and into the larger market. And it's annoying. And that pisses me off, Scott. So Scott says bad idea wants people to buy their books, but they don't care if they read their books. Why be a comic publisher then? That you're basically, when you say something like that, what you essentially are telling me is you're the same people that will buy books and flip books and spec books, but you don't read the books.
And to me, like, that's obviously, like, we wouldn't have a show here if we weren't actually reading the books. And like, that's the thing, is that so many complaints that people have about the comic book industry as it is right now, like where at C2E2, going into the line to get Ultimate Fallout 4, the reprint, and like, the different cover and all of that. These are problems that people are complaining about, that the people complaining made, right? Like, the people who are complaining about that happening, I feel like, are just the speculators.
Yeah.
The people who are causing,
they don't have anything to spec anymore.
And the people who, in my opinion, are causing commotion in Peach Momoko's line are people who just want to go get 100 things signed for free just so they can flip them. Where, y'all, there wouldn't be as much drama in the industry if we just read the books. Granted, we would still be here trash talking and choosing violence.
It's just annoying.
But still,
and I only get violent. Books. I only get violent because I care. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I do agree, John. Like, what does it say if they keep finding success? I think it's a little bit of FOMO. There's also dumb bitches like me who I'm just like, I will buy every single issue that I can find. I actually like reading their books, and that's the thing that hurts me the most, is that the books that they're publishing are pretty good.
I agree. The one book that I was able to actually get my hands on, I really, really enjoyed it. But that's enough. That's enough bad idea for one day. I need a palate cleanser. Can I show off all my little goodies that I get from Baltimore Comic Con?
Yes, please. I feel like there's a couple people in the chat that I want to say hi to my friend Jarrell. Just, I hope you're doing well, friend. Happy Halloween. I don't think that we also got to say hello to Greg E. So hello there. Black Box Comics, thank you for being here. Hello. And Gabby, fantastic girl who you met.
Who I saw Friday.
Yeah. So anyone else, if we missed you saying hello, it just means you've got to comment again. So go ahead and show us what you got at Baltimore.
Okay, so I only picked up a few single issues. I was very sad. I was hoping that there would be more dollar bins. I noticed this year there wasn't as many dollar bins, and I'm like, wow, inflation is real when there's not a ton of dollar bins at your show. But I got this Jenny Frisian Poison Ivy #4, a little bit of Peach Momoko with Enchantress, and again with Sif. I got this lovely Joelle Jones Nubia variant, which is just gorgeous. And then, of course, I had to pick up a copy of Bolero #1 and #5, which is going to be used for a secret special project that I got coming up soon. But let's be honest, you guys are here. I always talk every year about the trades that I buy when I'm at Baltimore. So I finally found out this year the name of the booth with the big red carpet that does $5 trades. I've been going there for 7 years and I never knew the name of it.
I just knew that it was the $5 trade booth. Is that like, that's it. So who is responsible for these $5 trades?
It is Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, who is actually a big sponsor of Baltimore Comic Con. But it was kind of sad this year because normally they have like 20 to 25 boxes of trades. And this year there was only 6. But I was still able to get a lot of books that I've been looking for. The first one is a copy of Bolero finally, because For some reason, I don't own the trade. I just own some of the single issues. And keep in mind, y'all, everything here was $5 because your girl's a bargain hunter, okay?
I just want to say I am so jealous because even though like I feel like I'm super thrifty when I can be. Most of these things that you picked up for $5, I have literally spent $20-$30 on some of these books. What was it? Party and Pray. I'm looking at you from last year. So I am super jealous because you picked up all of these for $5, and
if you came to visit, you could also get all these things for $5.
That's true.
Just saying. So for $5, another chunky, hefty boy. What's the furthest place from here? Which we all know I was not a huge fan of in single issues, but fingers crossed that it's better collected. The Low Low Woods, which is probably one of my favorite horror books in the century with the spooky season reads. I finally got Crowded Volume 3, which I was missing, and now I can finally finish out the series. I'm really, really excited about that. If you're not reading Crowded, please do. It's got the cutest character called Dog in it. Twisted Romance, which is a cute little anthology. And I love romance and comics, so obviously. Home, Volume 1, which I really like that first issue, but wanted to trade weight. This one I got based on your recommendation.
Oh, that book, like, I know that, like, so Comics Will Break Your Heart is because of a Jack Kirby quote. But if I had to think about, like, a recent book that really broke my heart, Bliss was it. Like, Comics Will Break Your Heart because of Bliss. Yeah.
That was it. And then Scout's Honor, which I got based off of a recommendation from Greg. So I'm really excited to have that. And then I was able to pick up Purdy Volume 2, which is one of my favorite, like, gun-toting westerns about an old lady with big bazungas, and she uses them to her advantage. It's just hilarious. If you haven't read this book, she's just like a cursing, drinking, swearing, having sex a lot granny cowgirl.
That's my favorite brand of granny. My granny brand. That would be if I was ever a granny, if I was ever a gilf, that would 100% be my brand.
And then my partner bought me this cute little Animal Crossing manga, which I'm now realizing I think is the first comic that they've ever bought me, which is exciting.
Ooh.
But they also picked up some books, which they're not my books, but they're probably going to be stolen and be my books. And but we have The Black Mage, which is a fun little book from Oni Press. The Last Session, because we were hanging out at the Mad Cave booth. And he bought this based on your recommendation, Terminal Punks.
Loves Terminal Punks.
So I have a lot of books to read now.
You do.
And it's exciting.
Did you get, you said Last Session. Duh. You just said that one.
I did. I got Last Session. What was really fun about picking up Last Session, specifically from the Mad Cave booth, was it came with a free set of dice and a cute little pouch that said The Last Session on it.
Oh, I love that.
That's my Comic-Con haul.
I love it. I really miss conventions, doing as many of them. Normally I feel like I would go to 3-4 a year, and obviously the last couple of years of the pandemic haven't been able to, but Portland is such a cool comics city that like we've got little swaps, we've got tons and tons of shops, but there's really only like one big convention unless you go up to Emerald City Con in Seattle, but that's 3 hours away. So.
Yes. Carrie coming in with the gentle reminder.
Yes, it's so funny because you're like, I need to persuade Jennifer to DM, and I'm like, you never need to persuade me.
We've been joking about this for years, so people in the chat help me continue to bully Jennifer that we would like to host a D&D session, which we would live stream for you all, of course. So you can get all the chaotic goodness, but Jennifer will be our game master. So help us put this together, because I have not played D&D in like 3 years, and I just want to play the sickest gremlin goblin little fucko that I can possibly imagine.
100%. What I need, anyone who would be interested in doing this, so you, Carrie's partner, maybe your partner, whomever, get your characters ready, and let's start off, level 1. Let's go ahead and do it.
I'm holding you to this.
Yeah, 100%. I love DMing. I'm not very good at it, but because I'm not good at the voices. I need to get better at doing character voices, but
we'll work it out.
We'll work it out, and you'll get to see me do it on a live stream. So
That's coming soon.
let's do it. So chat, if you're familiar with how the show goes, it sounds like we're about to transition over to talking about comics. We want to know from you, do you want us to start with Marvel? Do you want us to start with DC? Do you want us to start with indies? I feel like we read so many indie books
I
that
have like nothing for DC Comics. I think I might have 3 books.
Yeah.
And most of them are just, oh, it was good.
Oh, it was good. I liked it. That's, valid. So I think that we could probably lump DC and Marvel together.
Mm-hmm.
And then do indies separately. Some of the books that I got, I didn't read because that's just who I am as a person. But I did get this Star Trek book from this week, and specifically this one that has one of my favorites, Cisco, on it from Deep Space Nine. I love Star Trek Deep Space Nine so much. So, chat, what do you think? DC, Marvel, indie? What do you want us to start with? I don't even have to look at the chat, and I know Scott's like indie.
We're being hit with both indie and DC.
Ooh.
I think we should just do DC, get it out of the way. I think we've only got a couple books between them, and most of them, like I said, are just, it was good.
What books do you have for DC? Because I actually don't think I have any.
I have Nightwing 97, which, okay, it's Tom King. It's Bruno Redondo. That was from last week. It was good. It was decent because we're doing 2 weeks worth of books.
Oh, shoot. I only have this week's right in front of me.
We missed out. That's okay. There wasn't a ton.
Give me a second. Give me a second. Talk about Nightwing.
What am I going to talk about? She just abandoned y'all. She abandoned me. So Nightwing, it's average. It's good. I mean, it's not average. Let me backtrack that. It's above average, but it's hard when a book, and I think this is actually a really good thing. So it's really hard when a book is consistently good because I keep trying to find new things to talk about it. And when a book is as consistent as a book like Nightwing, and by extension, Superman, Son of Kal-El, which is another book done by Tom Taylor, it's just really hard to pick at it and just be like, I really enjoyed this book. And this is the book that I know each and every month I'm going to enjoy. I guess I'll talk about my other book because I know that Jennifer definitely did not read this book. And that book is Human Target number 8. And I actually got a funny story to tell with that one. So Human Target number 8, it's Tom King, Greg Smallwood. Now, this is a book that I can definitely say is average. I feel like at this point with Human Target, I'm already 3/4 of the way through it. I believe there's only 12 issues in the series. So I'm like, I might as well just finish it up. I'm not entirely loving Human Target right now, but I do love Greg Smallwood's art. And this is, I guess, is a good segue because while at Baltimore this year, of course, I had to stop by and see my buddy, Mr. Tom King, and I looked Mr. King right in the face and I said, listen, do it, you coward. And he looked me straight in the face and he's like, do what? And I was like, make them gay. And without even any hesitation, Tom looked me in the face and was like, who, Fire and Ice? And I'm like, uh-huh. And he tried very hard to pull the, oh, but they're just friends.
History will call them really good friends and roommates.
History will call them very good friends. Listen, Tom, you are the one true savior in this situation. You can do the right thing.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. So I'm not saying if they become gay that it was partially my doing, but I will take full credit if they do become gay. They're going to become gay no matter what, because I won't stop championing about it until Fire and Ice are finally confirmed queer. It's fine.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, I was grabbing my Marvel DC stack while you were talking about Nightwing. So I caught a little bit about what you were saying with Nightwing, where it's like this book is consistently good.
It is.
So, like, it's hard when there's an issue that it's not that it's not good. It's just this series is just so great.
It's like, what more can you say then? This book is really, really good. He grasped the character of Nightwing, and not only Nightwing, but just the entire Bat family as a whole. It's just really great.
Yeah.
But there was a book that ended this week And I don't know how to feel about it. Did you read Catwoman Lonely City #4?
I actually didn't. Yep, forgot to pick that one up.
So, and here's probably why. So, when we look at books like Catwoman Lonely City, which is a prestige format title from Black Label Comics, and it's done entirely by Cliff Chang, it's hard when a book like this has an inconsistent schedule, because this book has been coming out throughout the year. And actually, I believe the first issue came out in October of last year. So within the span of a year, we've gotten 4 issues. And I feel like this is such a tight-knit story that has a lot of intricate and interweaving details that when you have those long periods and gaps in between issues, that you can forget a lot of the details that are going to matter later on in the story. And I feel like because I didn't read it consistently, I kind of lost some of that magic. I still really like this story. I really like how Cliff Chang was able to end it. And even Cliff Chang apologized because of the delays, because he knew that the delays were on him specifically. So I'm not faulting him in that. It feels like it happens a lot with these DC Black Label prestige format comics where we don't get to see them month to month. There's always some type of gap.
Is it some type of, like, it feels like a curse with some of the Black Label books, because Swamp Thing Green Hell, which I was not a fan of, published 1 issue, and then now I think it's canceled. I haven't heard. I think another issue was supposed to come out in October. It didn't. Wonder Woman Historia started in October of last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
A second issue didn't come out till January, February, and we haven't seen a third issue since.
That sounds about right.
And then Aquaman Andromeda. The first 2 issues were like, kind of back to back, but then the third issue,
there was like a 2-month gap in between.
Yeah. And those are just the ones off the top of my head. So it's really disappointing, because Black Label, having that, like, the legacy of Vertigo comic books and such big name creators, they have the capability of really selling these authentic, like, non like contained stories. They can, like, be outside of the box. To have inconsistent publishing schedules, literally every single one, is so disappointing. So it's like,
Not
is it
only that,
really
but
those creators, or is it
DC? Not only that, but it's like Black Label has had some of the most consistent storytelling from DC Comics and has some of the most creative storylines that we're seeing. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like DC Black Label, it's like what the people want. These are the stories that I get most excited for. You have a story like Rogues, which I didn't expect to love as much as I did, and ended up being one of my favorite things to come out of DC this year.
So weird to me.
So weird to me. It's fine. But, I just wish that they could get these stories a little tighter. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if we've seen anything recently about DC Black Label. I don't know if we've seen any announcements for any more of those prestige format books. So it leads me to think, is this going to soon be the end of DC Black Label as we know it before it even really starts?
DC has a long line of
disappointment
of doing this with its non, like, mainline titles, because before there was Black Label, there was Young Animals.
Mm-hmm.
Before Young Animals, it was Vertigo.
Yeah.
And just bring back Vertigo. Just bring back Vertigo and let Karen Berger just be queen of DC.
Sounds like a plan. But that's all the DC books that I had. Were there any DC books that you had read in the past 2 weeks?
Let me see. I picked up Catwoman, but I haven't really been enjoying that very much. I did also pick up this cover, this issue of DC versus Vampires All Out War #4, for the only reason that it's Batwoman.
For the only reason that's Batwoman,
literally it. I'm probably just going to, like, cut this out and then frame it. And I think that's really it. And then Nightwing.
So then do we just jump right on over to Marvel and save the best for last?
Let's go ahead and jump over to Marvel.
So Marvel was a little rough. Okay, it was a little rough, but there was actually a book in there that might have been like my favorite book of the week. You obviously have way more books than I do, so why don't you start us off for Marvel?
Okay. I'm gonna try to figure out some of these, once again, I didn't read. Like I haven't read Dr. Aphra. I didn't read Iron Cat this week. I have not been reading Judgment Day. One of the books from last week, I know you did not like this one. I liked it though because I thought it was just fun. I could turn my brain off and just be like, "Oh, this is silly." Crypt of Shadows.
All right. Let me premise why I don't like Crypt of Shadows, right? I'm getting really tired of the big two. I'm going to call them out specifically because we kind of saw it with DC Tales of Terror, which came out a couple weeks ago. And then with Crypt of Shadows, while it doesn't self-proclaim itself as the Halloween spooky anthology, it's essentially the Halloween spooky anthology.
Yeah.
I'm getting really tired of these two big companies using horror to only, celebrate Halloween or the month of October, because
anthologies
nonetheless, because I feel like if we were to tighten the scripts a little bit, if we were to maybe do nice condensed miniseries, I mean, with DC Comics, you have Black Label, we could easily throw some nice horror titles under Black Label. Marvel, not really sure what you're doing there, but I'm sure you could figure it out. But if we were to take characters like Moon Knight, like Blade, like Man-Thing, if we were to take that Werewolf by Night little special that we got and kind of shift it over to comics, where we get that nice little concise story, give us a couple issues, have some really good scary horror stuff, I think that the publisher could really thrive with that. And it just makes me mad when we get, I'm not a huge fan of anthology stories when it comes to superheroes. You give me a nice horror anthology, I'm down for the count. I'm gonna have a really great time, but I don't know what to say with a Crypt of Shadows.
I still really liked it, especially because I felt like they did the whole like Crypt Keeper type thing. Like you have a guide through some of the stories, who like summarizes it and kind of has like a punchline at the end. I just thought that was very cute. But you're right. I think that some of these stories deserve to be fleshed out, deserve to be a little bit longer. And it's really, really fun to see horror in these big two characters. My favorite story, I don't recall the first two off the top of my head, but I really did like the story and the artwork for the Man-Thing story. That's the third one in Crypt of Shadows. So I will give it to Marvel for what feels like the first time they had an anthology series where they put a character on the front and the character actually had a story inside. Because with all the Pride ones, it feels like we get a cover that has Angela and then Angela doesn't have a story on the inside. So
this is true.
One of the other ones that I got that I don't think that you read, I haven't been reading Strange Academy. However, I did go ahead and picked up Strange Academy Finals.
Yeah, I haven't read that because I had a feeling I was going to be confused because I haven't read Strange Academy.
I feel like I've read enough Strange Academy where I know what's going on. But this definitely felt like, I don't want to say an annual, but it almost felt like an annual where I don't think you necessarily have to, but you could.
Okay.
Yeah. Still really enjoyed it. It was all right. But then I also read New Mutants this week, actually. For the first time, I picked up a New Mutants book in a while. And I feel like this one was like a Strange Academy tie-in. It's kind of weird. So the two just blended in my brain.
No, I didn't read New Mutants, but speaking of Strange Academy, we also had Midnight Suns, which also kind of feels like a weird Strange Academy blend.
It does, because in Midnight Suns, Nico Minoru gets like kidnapped, and then like the gang's got to get back together and like go save her, and then she gets kidnapped by Agatha Harkness, but Agatha Harkness, spoiler alerts, like the good guy. Like,
hasn't she always been the good guy?
She has. It's very much a like good for her, but I think that at first it's
very
like,
much a good for her.
Agatha Harkness steals her. So yeah. What else do you have for Marvel?
So Predator continues to be really, really consistent, and I can't believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. So Marvel,
especially considering that like aliens just
Aliens completely dropped the bomb, and I'm more of an Alien fan than a Predator fan to begin with.
Really? I thought
But
you were more of a Predator fan.
no, I've always listen, Ellen Ripley, that's my girl, my little xenomorph babies. Like, listen, that's where my bread and butter is. But the Predator comic from Marvel Comics, which is done by Ed Brisson, it's just been really solid. It's been this really simple tale of a girl basically out for revenge because she had to watch her entire family be slaughtered by this one specific predator. So her mission in life is she is now hunting down all the predators until she can come down to this one, and she's killed like 26 of them, which good for her. And I just really like that the Predator has boiled down to a good for her book. And I think it's funny because I feel like nobody's complaining about this book, which is ironic because this is the exact same type of stuff that grown men like to complain about. But everybody seems to unanimously agree that the Predator comic has been pretty solid.
Maybe it's because the Hulu movie overshadowed it. So a couple months ago, anyone who would be complaining about a Predator comic book got all their, like, I don't know, word vomit salad out with the movie.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. I read the first issue and liked it, but I think it was the second issue that just came out?
Third issue. We're on
Third
issue 3 now.
Okay. I was like, I think I read the second one, but I didn't read the third one, so.
Yep, we're on the third one now.
Well, I've only got 2 more books that I actually read by Marvel.
I have 2 more books that I read by
And I know
Marvel.
that they're going to be the same.
Do you? Do we?
Yeah. They should be.
What do you think?
Okay. So this one I know that we both read.
Okay, then I lied. I have 3 more books. Ha ha
Okay.
ha.
I was like, okay. So this book written by Gail Simone, I feel like you and I talked a little bit about this one, but this one felt the most different out of the whole series.
You're gonna make me say it out loud.
I liked this book. There's some really intense moments, but you have some feelings. Go.
I don't think I like this book very much. I think I'm blinded by the creative team and my love for the creative team on this book. That I was just willingly reading it, and I don't think that it's that great. So the whole premise of this story is Jessica Jones meeting multiple versions of herself from all these different multiverses. And yet there's this underlying conflict of her dealing with the Purple Man, who's Kilgrave, and him setting this trap for her, and then this underlying story of forgiveness and putting away your past and being able to live your life. And I really like that premise. I love the idea of, it feels done down to earth of the whole Purple Man, Jessica Jones conflict, but it works for her character.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never actually seen it before where she finally has to kind of leave her past in the past. And I think that would make for a really great story. However, I think the problem lies with these multiverse versions of herself because they don't really add too much to the story. There's slight moments here and there, but not enough to make it feel justified in having them. Not only that, but Jessica Jones just she's not an interesting enough character to have multiple versions of herself. I feel like...
Scott, I'm so sorry. I can hear your heart breaking.
I feel like... No. I'm not saying Jessica Jones isn't an interesting character. I love Jessica Jones. She's one of my favorite Marvel characters. But when we look at Jessica Jones and her power set, it's very... I punch people. I jump. Sometimes I fly. It's not like a character like, say, like Spider-Woman, where you could have multiple versions of Spider-Woman and different alter egos. Same with like Captain Marvel. You could have multiple versions of Captain Marvel that could be wildly different. I feel like, think about it. When we look at the Variants book, there are 2 versions of Jessica Jones that look exactly the same.
Yeah.
The only difference is the color of their shirt. And that, I'm going to say this, confuses the hell out of me. That being said, Gail Simone's writing is still solid. It's rock solid. I love the way that she handles the character. I love the dialogue between characters. And part of me hopes that maybe this push for this multiverse story more so comes from editorial than maybe Gail herself.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree with that. I think that if Jessica Jones is a very odd character to choose a multiverse story for, but I also think that, hear me out, Gail Simone is an incredible choice to write a story about Jessica Jones healing, and not
Mm-hmm.
just healing herself, but healing the layers of herself.
Yep.
And so, like, that's how I see this, is that, like, Jessica Jones isn't a character that we always get to see the like layers of the onion peeled back. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a way where we get to see those like layers pulled back a little bit. And like for me, that one fucking panel that broke me where she hugs the other version of herself who
Has
didn't
never had to experience Kilgrave, but hear me out.
I
With what we
just for that, just for
but
that.
hashtag hear me out with what we know now, is that whole panel just a lie?
Like,
Trying not to spoil it here, but is that whole panel, the emotion is still behind that panel, but I'm saying, what if that panel was the whole book?
yeah.
What if that, and that's why I'm saying I like the idea of this story being a Jessica Jones story where she has to heal from everything and from the trauma and finally move on and live her life with her family, because she's got a great life going for her.
Yeah.
But in every iteration of Jessica Jones, we still see her looking over her shoulder. And I'm not saying that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it could also mean a turning point in the character where we can finally put that part of her to rest.
Ooh, yeah.
Just saying.
I do agree with that. I think that Jessica Jones is such a strong character that everything that's happening has been like dumped on her, as opposed to her being the character that goes out and gets it. So the multiverse has been dropped on her rather than her searching through the multiverse,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is interesting, but also kind of like spoiler alert in this issue. I don't know if this would like, I still want to sell this book to people because I think it's like, I still think it's a good book.
Simone.
It's Gail Simone. Like you deserve to read it. Treat yourself. Fucking Charles Xavier shows up in this, spoiler alert. And what was it that he says to her is that he basically says,
he's the one telling her that she needs to let go instead of letting her have the decision of making it for herself.
Yeah, which I'm just like,
and here's the thing. I don't like the idea of a man trying to explain trauma to a woman, which is why another reason why I'm like, okay, well, if the whole story was her deciding to let go of the trauma rather than Xavier rolling up, and that just felt so out of the blue.
Yeah.
It felt so out of the blue to have this like weird X-Men. She's like, I have a friend from Krakoa, and I'm here thinking like, is Magic gonna show up? Because I can see her having a relationship with a character like that. Like, are you telling me that and Scott would probably be the one to correct me on this. Is there actually history between Professor X and Jessica Jones? Like, have they actually ever said a word to each other in comics before this moment?
I feel like they have, but I can't.
Do they have this type of relationship where he can just invade her mind and tell her things about herself?
I feel like, Scott, we need your Jessica Jones.
I need your knowledge.
Or Gore Vidal, if you're in the chat, let us know if this actually happens. But I still really like this series. There is a moment at the end which, I don't know, I guess it's not really a spoiler because it basically happens on the front here. But you know who I'd really love to see team up with Jessica Jones? Scarlet Witch.
Are you trying to make a book that makes me cry, or are we just trying to have the Trauma Power Hour?
Trauma Power Hour with Jessica Jones and Scarlet Witch. Yes, 100%.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So while we're maybe waiting on that, so there was one other Marvel book that I have. You have another one. What are yours?
So the only other one I have that's other than the one that we share is Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, I haven't been reading that one.
I don't know why. It was the first issue. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know why I read it. I was like, oh, it's the new number one. Let me read this one. So it's got art by, I can't tell you who wrote it, but it has art by Juan Ferreira, who worked on Green Arrow during the Rebirth era. And Part of me likes this book. I liked flipping through it and like reading certain parts of it rather than it as a whole, which sounds bad, but as a non-Spider-Man fan, it worked better for me. I feel like if you are a Spider-Man fan, you'll definitely have more feelings and more connections to this book than say I have. But what I really appreciated about this one is we got to see glimpses of horror and moments of horror, which I thought really worked with Juan's art. And not only that, but it reminded me of the book that we got last year that was like Shadows of Spider-Man, where it's like I wanted that to be more horror based.
Yep.
And I feel like this book in its certain moments kind of filled that void that I was looking for and gave me these really creepy moments and creepy designs. And some of the splash pages are absolutely gorgeous. So while I don't have much to contribute to it, I think that if you are a Spider-Man fan, if you want some of those horror vibes, I think you might enjoy it. I could be totally wrong on this, but I casually enjoyed it.
There is a book that's coming out. Is it Dark Web? And that feels like it's going to be another like spooky spider book, spider spook.
I want to see more spooky horror based books, even if it's another alternate universe. I want to see us push that boundary when it comes to our superheroes. And the only reason why I say that is because they keep thinking about books like Wonder Woman Dead Earth, where it threw Wonder Woman into this creepy post-apocalyptic world and broke barriers. I want to see that with other characters. I just think it would be cool.
Totally agree. And I think that Marvel has such a rich history of like really cool characters where that would work. So, and not just Spider-Man. So one of the other books, I wouldn't necessarily call it like spooky, but we do get to see some vampires. That's Exterminators.
This is my favorite book of the week. Listen. This book is not for everybody. I'm going to say that right now. Exterminators is for a very specific brand of people. And that brand of people is me. It is just really, really fun. It's really zany. It's extremely millennial and Gen Z. And I feel like if you're not the type of person that sits on TikTok like I do, you're not going to enjoy this book. You're going to think it's really freaking annoying. Yeah. I love this book. I love the cast of characters.
I love Boom Boom. I love Dazzler and Jubilee together. Like perfect.
And Laura Kinney just doing what she does.
Yeah.
I really like this book. I think it's I think it's fun. Yeah. And it makes me sad because I know that this book is not going to last. Like, it is going to get canceled. I know it's going to get canceled. I'm trying to brace myself for that. I wish it wasn't because I need Marvel and DC Comics to publish more fun things like this.
Yeah. And this one it's written by Stephanie Williams.
Leah Williams.
Leah Williams. What was the other X book that she had done? But I feel like I'm really, really liking this. But who knows?
I'm sad. It's only a 5-issue mini. What is the point?
Yeah, they could build up a whole world, but I feel like what happens with a lot of Marvel books in the X-Men, like what's been happening in this like post Hoxpox world of X-Men is that a title like Marauders or New Mutants or something will come along. Even X Corp or Way of X will be here for like a short run, and then it'll jump into another similar run. Mm-hmm. So maybe.
And I like this book because it has one of my favorite Hickman dump pages of all time that just says, "Hey, we already explained this. Go away."
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like,
and you're like, thank you.
That's what I needed. That's what I needed. I don't know. It's just really fun. It's really silly. It's definitely a book that you can't take seriously.
Yeah.
But just have fun with it.
I definitely, not necessarily that I know a lot of like young teen women, but I'd be like, if you wanted to get into X-Men as like a young teen, maybe this one would be it because it's very relevant. And you're right. It's very much for that like chronically online TikTok generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
So that leaves me with some indies.
Lots of indies.
So
many indies.
I feel like I want to talk first about the book that we were probably most excited for.
Oh, we're starting off strong.
I want to start off really, really strong with this one because I fucking loved it. And y'all know, spoiler alert, my favorite book of the year is going to be Bolero. Like, I'm just calling it. I don't think that there's going to be any book that like comes in and like takes that. But the artist for that book, Luana Vecchio, Lovesick came out, and this book is so fucked up and so delicious.
It's always nerve-wracking when the writer and illustrator of the book DMs you and is like, I need to know your opinions. And your opinion is one of the ones that matter. And I'm like, oh, shit. All the weight is on me now. And then you read the book and you're like, I think I really enjoyed this, but there's something in the back of my mind that's like, I don't know. Not necessarily, I don't know how I feel. It was more so, I don't know the acceptable way how to feel about this book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it is definitely really triggering. One of my favorite things about this book is that someone tweeted at Luana, the artist and writer, and basically said, this book is a knockoff of Red Room. Spoiler alert, this is actually a reprint. Like, Lovesick has already been out for quite some time. And Red Room came after this book. So I feel like Luana's been getting a lot of shit for this book for like stupid reasons, where it's like, you're just a man-hating lesbian, or you're just a feminazi. Okay. It's a great book.
This book is insane. Explain how this book is, because
the premise of this book is basically, I'm not gonna lie, what's her name? Is it Domino? Domino is living my dream life, where she basically gets to
oh no, Jen is frozen. Or I'm frozen. I don't know if I have lost Jen or if Jen has lost me. Is Jen living her best life? Has she left us? Have I left us? Okay, Jen is frozen. Thank you for the confirmation. Jen literally decided that she was just going to leave the Casually Comics team to jump into the world of Lovesick to live out her best life. That's literally what happened. I feel like I don't want to explain this book because Jen's going to explain it way better than me. Oh no. What has happened? All right, I'm going to do this until Jen comes back, if I can. Oh no. Give me one moment, guys. We are having a bit of technical difficulty. Hopefully Jen comes back, because now I feel like I'm in a very awkward place. We're just going to do this for now until Jen comes back. Hi, I'm here to talk about Lovesick. You know what? I'm not going to talk about Lovesick. We're going to come back to Lovesick. Okay. We're going to come back to Lovesick because I know Jen really, really loves this book. I really, really love this book, and I don't want to talk about it without her. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to a book that I know she definitely did not read. And that is the finale of Public Domain, which is done by Chip Zdarsky and also published by Image Comics. Public Domain has been a very weird little book. It's definitely one of my favorite books of the year because it takes the comic book industry and takes a look at it as a larger whole rather than just taking a story and creating it. So Public Domain essentially tells the story of like a Jack Kirby-esque comic book creator who has been writing and illustrating comics for years. There's basically like its own MCU for it, but yet he's not really seeing any of the profit from it. He gets to be invited. He gets to be invited to like the premieres and things like that as a way to kind of sedate him and keep him happy, but he doesn't own the rights, and he doesn't get the money. Well, we found out that Public Domain in public domain that he actually does own the rights. And so it's this big legal battle, and it's such a larger look into the comic book industry as a whole. And basically says, for lack of a better word, pay your fucking creators a living wage, and treat them with the care and respect that they deserve, because without these creators, you wouldn't have the MCU, you wouldn't have all this merchandise. And it's just fantastic. And I think that the way that this book ended, it ended on a fantastic note. I know it had a little bit of a shaky penultimate issue. We threw in some things that didn't really matter, but I really, really liked the ending of this book. And I think that if you love comic books just as a medium, if you love this industry the way that we do, you definitely need to be reading it. And then I think you definitely need to read Olympia, which was also published by Image Comics a year later, because it's a perfect companion piece. Also, Jen is back. If Jen could flip us so I could put our banner back. That was a scary moment. Please don't ever do that again.
All right, I got really passionate. Y'all know that I just got Jeff Bezos.
You did. But so we paused on Lovesick. I was waiting for you to come back. I talked about Public Domain and the finale of Public Domain.
I that one.
You need to read it now that it's coming to trade, the final issue, and then the trade is being published.
How was the ending? Did it?
I liked the ending. I know I've talked in previous shows that some of the issues were kind of going back and forth and it was a little rocky, but I think it really stuck the landing, and it ended on a really great moment. And it basically ended, the last line in the book said, okay, let's make some comics. And there's something about that, you know, Jack Kirby is somewhere and he's looking at it, and he knows that's what it's all about.
He's like, yes, make those comics.
But let's talk about Lovesick. Let's see if we can do that again. So please tell us the premise of Lovesick.
The premise of Lovesick is that Domino is living my dream life, basically. Maybe a version of it, but basically what she does is she is this like extreme dominatrix with these with the consent of these men, basically like kills them on live stream and tortures them.
It's great.
So, you know, me and who I want to like open this book and be like, this book is so beautiful. This book is so beautiful and bloody. And I can't open it up because it's so beautiful and bloody. And there's like a lot of like nudity and torture, and it's just so good.
It is good. It's gorgeous. I absolutely love the designs from Luana. This is definitely one of those books where you just kind of, it's a surface value book, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't say that as an insult, because there are some books that are just surface value. Bolero was not a surface value book. There
were layers and layers and layers.
There were layers and layers. Yeah.
Where what you see is what you get. Like, there's no interpreting this any other way. Like, it's not like you need to, like, I don't know. This book, in my opinion, is just like so fucking like sexy. If you want like a sexual awakening from this book, like if you, I don't even know how to put it. This is probably telling y'all a lot about me. Mom, if you're watching, I mean, not really surprised, you know, I'm a weirdo. But like, I don't know. It's so good.
It's a good book.
I love it.
It's a good
really
book.
Good book.
Definitely take it with, you know, it's definitely sensitive material. So take care. It's very sensitive material.
Very sensitive.
Do not read this book in public. This is definitely not one to read. Well, Jen's gonna read anything in the park. She doesn't care.
I don't care.
She does not care. But it's definitely, don't read this book around your grandparents.
Yeah, don't read it around your grandparents, your grandkids, any of it. It definitely is a book that I think should be read. I know we talked a lot about this year, the book Hit Me, by Christina Faustus and Priscilla Petraeus. Mm-hmm. And if you liked that book at all, or if you liked us talking about that book and like even wanted to take it to the next level, this feels like next level.
Yeah. It does.
So good.
It's very, very good.
So good.
And the covers are gorgeous. Like, oh my God. The covers are seriously gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Please read the book.
Please.
How the hell are we going to start off swinging with public domain? That's crazy. Or not public domain, with Lovesick.
Yeah.
I would say with Lovesick, I would say if you read and enjoyed, and if you haven't read, please read. If you have not read and enjoyed Hit Me, published by AWA, this is like a perfect companion piece, I would think. Am I wrong on that? I feel like the two go very well together. It's definitely one of those, if you liked this, then read this.
Yeah, where so both of them are told from kind of similar viewpoints, where the main character of Hit Me is a sex worker who basically can take a lot of hits, where Domino is the one who is giving all of the hits.
Yeah.
So
two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. What were some indie books that you really liked? Anything else?
Indie books that I really liked. Did you get a chance to read Dead Mall #1 from Dark Horse Comics?
You know, it's so funny because I picked that one up, and for some reason, like, I have it here, but I didn't read it. So you're gonna have to tell me about this book.
So Dead Mall was really, really good. I really enjoyed Dead Mall. I think the art is really great. Essentially, it's a group of teenagers that decide that they're going to spend a night in an abandoned mall. And it seems like a really simple premise, but I really like the conversation because we've seen within the past 5 years the whole concept of, oh, our mall's going away. And you see like people post TikToks of like just stores that have been abandoned. There might be like 3 or 4 stores left in an entire mall. More recently at one of our local malls, they found an entire Burger King still intact, hidden behind the walls of the mall, which I think is fascinating in its own right. I was gonna say, I feel like this is the perfect place to set a horror book.
100%. And as someone who I've worked in retail for a really long time. I've worked in like a mall setting for a very long time. And once I read, was it Black Friday and books like Ice Cream Man, Silver Coin, I'm like, man, doing a horror story based on like a retail worker's experience would be so relevant and just so, I would really enjoy that. And even though this one I don't believe is an anthology, like, I agree. So yes, it's been weird to see this transition, especially over this last 10 years of like these big malls that used to just be like, what are you going to do on a Friday?
With them.
Yeah. But so here in Portland, there's the Lloyd Center, which is a pretty big mall. One of the comic book shops that used to be like a little bit closer to me on this on the side of town that I live on actually closed their location and moved into the mall. And this is where we did the Frankenstein comic swap. So they actually took over like an old Banana Republic or something and did the comic swap inside the mall in one of those stores. So I do think that there's some opportunities for like some cool creative stuff for malls to do. But anyways.
But I really like this book. Like I said, the premise is really simple. A bunch of teenagers stay in a mall, but it starts to get otherworldly and fantastical because you have moments where like this book comes right out of the gate. You know, we're in the mall within the first couple pages. We're immediately split up. We're immediately getting into spooky shenanigans. It is definitely, we're diving headfirst right in. And I really like that when it comes to horror, because often what we see with horror, both in comics and other media, is it takes a while for that build up. And I can't stand that. Like,
they're like slow burns.
Throw me right into the mix. And, you know, we have our teenagers being separated. We have, you know, the rooms are shifting. We have creepy monsters that are coming out, and these teenagers at this point are just trying to escape, but they can't escape because they don't know how to navigate a mall because they're teenagers and they're not used to being in malls the way that me or you or I are.
They're used to being on their phones all the time.
You know, they're used to being on their phones all the time. But I think what really drives the story home is our narrator is the monster. And we get really cool panels, or not necessarily the monster, but the spirit, the deadly force, whatever we want to call it. It's our antagonist. And we get moments where a character will be separated and you'll think, okay, it's their time to die. And we'll get a little thought bubble from said antagonist. It's like, no. they might be going to die, but it's not their time yet. And I really
Oh.
like that, like breaking the fourth wall.
Because then that
horror.
gives you incentive to like, okay, I need to pick up the next issue. Do they make it or not?
It does. And I just like, I don't know. We don't have too many books where it's from the perspective of the antagonist, especially when it comes to horror and it comes to ghosts and goblins and whatever else goes bump in the night. I really, really like this book. And it just goes to show that Dark Horse is killing it this year.
They really are. They've been doing a lot more creator owned projects, which I really like. So yeah.
It was a good book. There was a lot of really great spooky horror books out this week.
Speaking of spooky horror books that came out, did you get a chance to read Hellboy in Love?
I hated it.
It's a one of two, and I feel like it's set up.
I read this book because it's called Hellboy in Love. I read this book for monster boinking.
Yeah.
I read this book for monster cuteness and monster love and going on a cute monster date and then maybe monster boinking. I didn't get any of that. Where is the romance in Hellboy in Love? It's not
100%. I don't know.
I don't even read Hellboy, okay? Do you want to know what my Hellboy experience is? My Hellboy experience is this cute little short that I found in a book that I bought for $3 one day, where it's Hellboy eating pancakes for the first time as a child. And it's probably my favorite comic story ever. Like, it's just so fucking cute. And, like, yes, I've seen the Guillermo del Toro movie, but I haven't seen the second one, which everybody keeps yelling at me for. But, like, there was more romance in Hellboy, the movie, than there was in a book called Hellboy in Love. Please explain that to me.
That's one thing. So, like, it's a one of two. Or, sorry, it says part 1 of 2, but it's actually a 1 of 5. Maybe that's why I was so confused, because it feels like it should set it up, but there was no chemistry.
None.
No chemistry
Zero.
Between these characters. They didn't boink.
I have more chemistry with Hellboy.
Maybe we'll get it in issue 2, but I feel like
Am I going to bother? I could just write fan fiction at that point. I'm just gonna write self-insert OC Hellboy fan fiction, and get my money's worth out of it that way. Also, I'm glad to know that Scott knows what story I'm talking about, because when I tell people about it, I feel like I'm talking about a fever dream, where I'm like, yeah, my only Hellboy book is one where he eats pancakes, and it's really, really cute, and he gets confused by them. I don't know.
I have a collection of like Hellboy short stories. I haven't read all of them, so I'm going to see if I can find that one if it's in there, because that sounds like my brand.
It does sound like your brand.
What are the books you got?
What other books do I have? Well, we had two Archie horror books.
Just about to.
And I'm not going to go into my rant. If you want to see my rant, go watch our last episode. I go into a huge rant about Archie horror and how they tease me and they don't actually give me what I want, which is Afterlife with Archie and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina returning. But they continue to give us these cute little one-shots, which I'm like, cool, whatever.
So it's like a consolation prize.
It's a consolation prize. So Fear the Funhouse was okay. It wasn't for me.
It was definitely geared towards a much younger audience. And
it was much younger. Imagine like baby Looney Tunes, like baby Archie telling cute little campfire stories, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
And they were all incredibly, like, this is a very thin book, and there were three stories in here, and they were all very short. So for me, this is almost the perfect book if you were going to do like a trick or treat, like free comic book day, which did happen yesterday. To me, this would be a good book for it, but to pay, what was it, $2.99, $3.99 for it? $3.99?
It definitely, I feel like you're right. I feel like this definitely should have been like their Comic Fest free comic book day giveaway. I think it would have been a perfect title. Now, Chilling Adventures in Sorcery.
The return of Chilling Adventures of Sorcery.
I should disconnect right now. But no, there was a story in that I really liked about Veronica Lodge finding a dress and it kind of turning her psycho. Yeah. And you have this like idea that it's like, oh, the dress demands a sacrifice, and like the shopkeep is even like, I need more in order to
Yeah.
give you like this accessory that goes with the dress. And so Veronica goes out and she gets more. And then we find out that the shopkeep is just like, I just wanted some like money to fund my like bath salts and my candle line. Like, this is what she did all on her own. And I'm like, that's good horror.
Yeah.
Like, that is really great horror. And we get these like small mini sort of stories,
Because there's
we get mini stories that are kind of wrapped around this larger story involving Madam Satan and in a school, and like Veronica Lodge is sewed up into like a crow costume, which I thought was really, really dark, but really, really cool. I like when they do shit like this because, like I said before, I don't think Archie is good for much else other than horror. But it feels like we're just constantly being given consolation prizes, and I just want Afterlife with Archie to come back.
I want Afterlife with Archie, and I also want Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, or whatever that may be, because it's really, really good. This is one of those examples where I do like that these stories were shorter, because like I said, there's 4 in here, and literally half the book is just advertising for other Archie shit in the back. So these are really, really short stories, but I'm like, I need them longer. I need them more fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
This one I was okay with.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay. Since we're on the spooky theme, did you read Stuff of Nightmares #2?
I did.
I really like this book.
Yeah, I think that the artwork, to me, I love the artwork a lot.
It's not even just the art, it's all of it. It's R.L. Stine writing for a more mature group while still giving that, like, even though I know it's meant for adults, it feels like he's pining for my nostalgia. Like, it's almost like he wrote it specifically for our generation that grew up reading Goosebumps and grew up reading Fear Street and things like that. And I really, really like that. And really what this story boils down to is like this psychotic psychomania modern day Frankenstein story, which on the surface doesn't sound great, but you have R.L. Stine, who's a mastermind of horror, and I can't even really pick what works because I just know it's R.L. Stine and it works.
It definitely had Reanimator vibes, like the first one, but the second one really, really did. I love this, like, Reanimator Frankenstein. I really, really like this one.
I do. I like it.
So it's the second issue. You still have time, if you haven't read it, to go pick up the first and the second one. And if not, pick up the trade. Because it's spooky.
It's good. And I definitely would like to see more R.L. Stine in comics, because he's done comics here and there specifically with Boom, but they've always been geared towards a much younger audience. And that's fine. You know, R.L. Stine, that's his bread and butter, is going to a younger audience. But again, it's that nostalgia, that 90s nostalgia where we grew up on this man. And it's like, please, Mr. Stine, I would like some too. And listen, he's delivering.
I just have to say, Josue says, can't believe I'm missing this one.
What?
I know where you can get them.
Yes, please read. Please immediately read.
Speaking of horror, since we're talking about horror, unless there's any other Boom horror.
I don't think I have.
There's a Boom book.
Was Damn Them All Boom?
Ooh, you know what? I think it was. I really liked this book. So Damn Them All came out, and it felt like a female Constantine that wasn't.
This book gives me Black Magic vibes.
Yes, by
Black Magic from Gail Simone, or no, that's Rucka. You're
Greg
right.
Rucka and Nicola Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's this character who her uncle. It literally starts off with like her talking about her uncle showing her like a magic trick or like doing something, and you think it's going to be a magic trick, but it's actually like ceremonial, like sacrificial type magic. And boy, is this it. For everything from like the way that she narrates it to like what you see on the panel and like what happens is just, it's so intriguing. I loved this.
So I knew I wasn't going to like this book because it's written by Cy Spurrier. Me and Cy Spurrier do not get along. I think that they write entirely way too dense.
You and I are about to not get along.
It bothers me. I've heard really, really great things about this book. I like the premise of it. Like, hey, listen, I was the one to be like, oh, this gives me Black Magic vibes. It's just not for me. And that's okay. Books don't have to be for me, especially when I have no breathing room in between bubbles.
Yeah. I feel like this one doesn't do that, though. I feel like this one does give you the breathing room, and that's because of the way that the narration is told in some spots.
Maybe. I don't know. I personally was not a fan of it, and that's okay.
Oh, breaking my heart. I loved it. I can't wait to see where it goes. I just want the best for, what's her name? Is it Elle?
Mm-hmm.
Bloody, because they call her Bloody Elle. Like Bloody Elle. That's my
I realized.
It's also like set in Britain, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. You have to say it in that accent.
Bloody Elle.
Bloody Elle. Yeah.
I only have one more book. I have one more.
Okay.
Listen, I had a convention this week. I had to make sure my stack was kind of light.
Let me go ahead and I'm just going to grab some of the books that I really liked. Oh shit, I forgot a Marvel book. I think I know which one is your last one, and it's published by Image, right?
No.
Oh. Was Above Snakes number 5?
So I did read it, but I wasn't gonna. It's one of those.
Number
it was
4.
Good. I liked it. I like this book. So that's not the book that I have, but I like this book.
Really quick, I'm going to go through some of these that I read, just because I really liked a lot of them. I thought that the last issue number 3 was going to be the last one, but apparently Space Lady number 4 came out. Mm-hmm. I love this book. I love this book. I love this book. I'm not saying this is going to be my favorite book of the year because we already know that title, but this is one of my favorite books of this year. I love it. It's so good. I forgot to talk about this when we were talking about Marvel books, but I read Miracle Man, The Silver Age. This book confused the fuck out of me. I love you, Neil Gaiman, but I'm not going back to this book. Sorry.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Sacrament by Peter Milligan. I love this book. I really, really like this book, even though it's like exorcisms in space. It's so weird. It's so bloody. Anyways. Fun Girl, You Are Revolting was really weird. Fun Girl ends up like, this is a very like
Who's
R-rated.
That published by?
Silver Sprocket. She basically like, you see a lot of self-pleasure in this book, and this like character walks into like her and her roommate's life, and she's like a sex robot. Oh, it's so weird. It's revolting and it's weird. It's revolting. And I love it. Nita Ha's Nightmare blog. Really loved it. It's just, I know that's like vague. Flawed number 2 came out. This one took a different turn than I thought the first one was going to be. It almost took like a supernatural turn to it, but I enjoyed it. And the artwork is really pretty. Rogues Gallery ended. I didn't love the ending on this one, but I still really, really, really loved this series. It was really good. And Hannah Rose May, I think this is one of her favorite ones, or this is her first book. I feel like I've got a couple else here, but I also really liked 10,000 Black Feathers issue number 2.
See, I still haven't read number 1. I need to do that.
This second one goes a lot more into the world that the two characters like create. And it almost felt like what was that book where the kid dies? Bridge to Terabithia.
Okay.
It reminds me of that, but more
weird.
Horror.
That's a weird. If you like this, then read this. But
yeah,
I dig
if you were traumatized by Bridge to Terabithia as a kid, you'll be traumatized by this one too, maybe.
Nice.
Or maybe healed. Maybe your inner child will be healed. Okay, I've got a couple more, but What's your last one?
The only one that I have left is from Volt, and that was Nightfall double feature.
I didn't even read that one. I didn't get that one.
I kind of like this one. It was a nice little read. It was like it was a double feature. What else can I say? It was a double feature. That had two separate horror stories. It kind of reminded me of Shock Shop, which I really really liked previously.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's just nice little concise little horror stories. The first one being that bones are showing up everywhere in places that they aren't supposed to. So we get bones and stuffed animals. We get bones that latch onto a corset at somebody's wedding and squeezes them to death at the altar, which I thought was kind of crazy. And there's something bigger going on with that. And it's just, I really like these little nice, concise horror stories. And what I really liked about this is that they played up the double feature aspect of it.
Ooh.
Because halfway through the book, the end credits roll, and then there's an intermission page. And it was like very vintage, very like go get your popcorn and your pretzel and your little soda, and it was just really cute. And I like the idea that they played up that theme of going to a drive-in and seeing a double feature. It was just really cute, and I really like the design team over at Volt and everything that they're doing consistently.
I love that. I need to pick up the second one, but it looks like at the shop we didn't get Volt this week. So
womp womp.
Womp womp. I forgot one book that I really, really did also like. It's a one shot. It's called Caffeinated Hearts. It's written by Jonathan Hedrick. It was really, really cute. It's about this like barista. And I didn't even realize it until like midway through, but it's like set in space or like, I don't know. But it's a one shot and it's actually really, really adorable. And I love the artwork. So that was really good. That was 2 weeks worth of books.
That was 2 weeks worth of books. But now time for, that was the trick. Now time for the treat.
Ooh, I love that segue.
We have some spooky comic recommendations for you because
we do.
It's not Halloween if we're not recommending and slinging spooky comics.
Of course not. I mean, we're slinging spooky books all the time, but some, as it turns out, there are some people who like only want to read spooky books during spooky season, or they just like spooky books. Yeah. One of the things that I want to talk about, because I've got this one behind me, Philadelphia Volume 4, written by Rodney Barnes. I'll be interviewing Rodney Barnes over on Comic Shop News again this Friday. I can't remember what time. So if you haven't already followed me on Instagram, follow me over there because I'll be posting the link. And we'll be talking to Rodney Barnes, and this will be our like fourth time talking to him.
It feels like every time a trade releases, you guys do a conversation with him, which is really, really cool.
And not that I have any beef with Rodney Barnes whatsoever, because I absolutely love that dude. I'd want him to pick up writing Swamp Thing. But I have some beef. I have some bones to pick with Rodney Barnes. So you'll have to watch the interview for me to tell him to his face the bones that I have to pick with him. Yeah.
Very nice. So do you want me to start? Do you want to start? Are we going
back
and forth? How are we
just get Philadelphia, first book. Philadelphia.
Okay.
Read Philadelphia. Read Nita Ha's Nightmare blog.
Look away because I know you hate every time I recommend this book, but I'm going to recommend it anyway. And that is probably the most horrifying book on this list, which is Blood on the Tracks. This one's actually a manga. Yeah, I made Jen read this book, and then she's like, I fucking hate you because now I can't sleep. And so that's good. That means it's a good book. If you can't sleep because it's so scary, that's a good book. So Blood on the Tracks is a manga by Shuzo Oshimi. It follows a very simple premise. An overbearing mother who will literally do anything to keep her son's love. Definitely gives like creepy flowers in the attic type vibes, which I know wasn't the best thing to compare it to, but when you talk about just the shit that people will go through for their family, this is it. There is murder, there is betrayal, there's just some really creepy moments, the way that the mother is depicted, and you get these scenes where it almost feels like she's staring directly into your soul as a reader. It'll keep you up at night. It's terrifying. Please read this book.
It is. And it's not necessarily like a spooky or creepy book, in my opinion, but it fucking haunts me.
It's haunting.
Like I think about that book and I think about what the characters go through. And I am revolted. And like Junji Ito gets a lot of like credit for being a master in
horror
manga. But this book right here, like I stay awake at night thinking about Blood on the Tracks.
It's very good. I believe there's like 6 or 7 out right now. I think the last one I read was like 4 or 5. Because and this is why I don't like reading manga, is because I have to spend $13 on a book that I probably read in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's okay. But yeah, read Blood on the Tracks and then be terrified with me, and then pray, but also not pray that we get an anime adaptation, because I would love I would love to see this book adapted, but at the same time, I don't, because then I'm really going to be kept up late at night. So
yeah, I almost want like a live action adaptation of it.
Yes, that would be good. And Scott is completely correct. This book feels like the first half of Hereditary. Yep. I agree 100%. Thank you for that, because that's now how I'm going to be pitching the book. It's Hereditary meets Flowers in the Attic.
Ooh, yeah. In a like manga
format.
One of the other books that I'm going to go ahead and talk about is this one right here. Someone else that we've interviewed on this channel, but Bitterroot, written by our friend David F. Walker and Chuck Brown, illustrated by Sanford Green. This book isn't necessarily like horror or horrific, but there's a lot of like monster fighting, and the people who are monsters are people who have been like infected by racism and bigotry. And this book has so much to say, and I love it. We're about to get, it was announced at Heroes Con this year that this book is the next volume is going to be like set in the like 60s. So I'm really excited for that. So if you like monster hunting books and books about family, so if you basically want Fast and Furious meets monster hunting, I don't know. It's about family.
Fast and Furious meets Van Helsing.
Van Helsing. It's so good.
Okay. So this, I feel like I bring this book every time I talk about scary, spooky stuff. So this is another book that I think I read this book once a year, because of how fucking creepy it is. Yeah. This is Beautiful Darkness. I'm not going to try to pronounce their names because they're French and I'm bad at French. But Beautiful Darkness, is like a small little indie book from Drawn and Quarterly that puts on this very cute Alice in Wonderland fantasy facade. But this book is literally the most terrifying fucking thing.
That's like, a creepy one.
It's like these little Thumbelina ass people, and so you find out, the whole premise of the book is you find out that their home is collapsing and caving in on itself. So they have
But what is their home?
I'm getting there. So their home is collapsing and caving in on itself. So they all have to flee, and they go out into like the open meadows, and they have to find a new home. And it's revealed pretty early on that the home is actually, here we go. It's revealed early on that the home is actually just the dead body of a girl, and the body is naturally decaying, which is why it's caving in on itself.
It's literally like they're inside living, and it's like rotting around them, and it's just like, because at first you're like, oh, this is cute, like it's a cute little, like they're little birds and stuff.
And the birds are not cute, because there's a moment where, you know, one of the birds, or one of the little girls, she gets plucked off by a bird. She's carried to the bird's nest. She sees that the birds are being fed, so she opens her mouth to accept being fed. Why you do that, I don't know, but she literally gets pierced in the mouth by the bird's beak, and it's gruesome while still being cute. It's
cutesome.
There's another part where like this girl, she gets involved with like an anthill, and she's like interrupting their flow. So what do the ants do? The ants literally grab her and drag her away into the anthill. This book, literally every time you think you can kind of guess the beats that it's going to take and its horrificness, it does something else to kind of twist and to horrify more. And not enough people talk about this book. When I think of horror, this is what I think of. So if there's one book out of all of the things that I'm recommending today, please read Beautiful Darkness, because it's fantastic.
It really is. I remember you recommended that one to me, and it was kind of hard to find at first, but well worth the search.
And I'm going to be honest, people always ask me once I recommend it, they're like, well, where did you find it? I don't remember. I remember I got it for Christmas one year because I saw somebody talking about it and said, this is the most fucked up book you'll ever read. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I like reading fucked up things. And sure enough, it was one of the most fucked up things I've ever read.
So true. So my one of my picks is next. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this book. Dan and I from Comic Shop News, where we're doing the Philadelphia interview, we were going to talk about this book yesterday. I had a death in my family. My 17-year-old cat baby died, passed away. So, anyways, we decided to cancel the show for the week. Or, anyways, but this book right here, Blue and Green by Ram V, is
Or was your book of the year last year, wasn't it?
It was my book of the year for 2020.
For 2020.
2021 was The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. This year it's definitely Bolero. But this book is about a high school music teacher. His mom is ill. He has to like go back and help like take care of her, take care of like funeral arrangement type stuff. And he ends up having to like confront his past, and the blending of like the story that's partially like what really is it about like your past that haunts you, and the blending of like music and the artwork is so syrupy. This book, like, this is another one of those books that like literally haunts me. I loved it so much. A lot. I loved this book. So, if you like music, if you like Miles Davis, read the book.
Read the book. Do you like lesbians? Do you like good for her moments? Do you like women that become monsters to fight off those that have hurt them? Well, then do I have a book for you? It's a little book called Insects. So
hold on, because I'm a chronically online millennial. I feel like this is that like Negroni Spagliato with Prosecco in it. So do you like lesbians?
Do you like good for her moments?
Good for her moments.
Do you like body horror?
With a little bit of body horror. Ooh, then stunning.
Read Insects. Stunning. So Insects is another book that I feel like nobody talks about. This is one of the first titles published by Aftershock Comics. It was done by Marguerite Bennett, who, first of all, let's take a sidestep here. Can somebody tell me what happened to Marguerite Bennett? Because about 5 years ago, she was on top of the world writing for DC, Marvel, and Image.
Yep.
I don't know what has happened to her. I hope that she is doing all the best and living her best life. But if she could please return to comics so that way I could get more lesbian-fueled things, it would be greatly appreciated. So anyway, back to Insects. Insects is this Victorian, like I said, Victorian body horror story about two women who decide to kill the one woman's husband so that way they can be together, and basically start a family of their own. And there's these moments of chrysalis and transformation, and then the husband's family, who isn't very great anyway, they start trying to come out after them and come out for revenge. And nice, thank you, Josue.
Which one was that one? Was that sorry.
But they start coming after her for revenge, and it's just this really great revenge family lesbian love Victorian romance novel that is perfect for your spooky goofy needs.
Yes, 100% agree. And the artwork is really like, even though it's
great,
I would say it's definitely like that traditional comic book style, it still like really works for like the horror. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot.
Yep.
Okay. Yes. Surprise. Okay, sorry, I've got some books down here I'm gonna grab for them. What other spooky goofy books did I?
Because I have 1, 2, I have 3, 4, I have 5 left.
Okay. Another book that I really like, I feel like I talk about this one every year.
A lot of these books I feel like we talk about every year.
Because we still seem to be recommending these books and still get people who are like, I need to pick that one up. So help us help you, help us talk about new books by picking up these books, because we talk about them a lot, which we should. Victor LaValle, who wrote the Sabretooth mini this year.
Mm-hmm.
They also write Eve, did this book a couple years ago called Destroyer, which is about the Frankenstein's family. So the mom is basically like one of the heirs to the Frankenstein line of scientists, and her son dies by police violence, and so she reanimates him. This book is so relevant, and it is just so damn good. I do not think that I would love to have this be a series, but it works just in this one. It's pretty darn good. Pick it up, please.
I'm actually reading that one right now.
What's another book you got?
So this was a book I read last year. It Eats What Feeds It, from Scout Comics. It's a book that's been on my list for a while, and I finally got it last year, and it was really, really great. So basically this kid goes to work, and I say kid because he's probably like 18, 19. He goes to work for this middle-aged woman who claims that she's sick and dying, and she does all this stuff for her, or he does all this stuff for her. Of course, it's set in like this creepy Southern Bayou type situation. They kind of strike up a romance, which is weird and horrific in its own way, which kind of adds to the intensity of the whole story, because the entire time you can't tell if she is using him because she wants to feed on him, or if she's using him because he's helping to feed her in other ways. And I don't know. I just really like this. It's a really short, easygoing read. It's one of those.
And they're like $9.99 books, right?
Yep. It's a nice little $9.99. It's only 3 issues, but I really, really enjoyed this book. It's a nice Gothic horror.
Ooh, yeah.
And I think that if you like those Southern Gothic horror vibes, that you'll really, really enjoy. And again, I like talking about books that I feel like people don't talk about enough.
So if you liked Nancy Collins' Swamp Thing, then you would like that one.
Then I would like that one. Nice.
One of the next books that I have, this one was a really tough book for me, but the more and more I like think about it, going back and rereading it, I think that I love it a lot because of what it has to say, and that's Ma. This is a book about a young woman who is dealing with the aftermath of sexual assault and goes to a women's retreat. But then it's like, how toxic is that women's retreat? She becomes a monster. And I not necessarily love stories that deal with that type of subject matter because there's too many. One is one too many. But I think that when we think about the world making monsters of women and then vilifying us for making us the villain, there's definitely some moments in here that's like, good for her. But this was weird, but I still really, really, really loved this book. I read it when the single issues came out, read it again in trade. Ma is excellent. Jude Ellison, S. Doyle, and A.L. Kaplan. And A.L. Kaplan's doing the Stuff of Nightmares by Boom. Okay, what's your next book?
What about, listen, who said that horror can't be horny?
No one.
Who said that horror can't be horny?
You cannot have horror without a little bit of horniness. Like, mark me down as scared and
Mark
horny.
me down as scared and horny. So this book, is it the best book? No. Do I enjoy it? Yes. Am I sad because it stopped at volume 1 and never continued and will never continue again and nobody ever talked about it? Yes. Also, yes. So this book is essentially, this is going to sound really bad, but it's a good for her moment. So this woman is very unsatisfied in her marriage and strikes up an affair. And in said affair, she basically gets herself involved with like this monster cult where the guy that she is having the affair with, is this like weird alien, scaly type monster. And then aliens. She finds out that because she is kind of getting herself involved into the cult, she herself is kind of becoming this weird monster, but yet Nobody really knows who this guy is. When she says, "Hey, did you see me with that guy?" Nobody knows who she's talking about, but yet she's still becoming this monster. And this one's done by Peter Milligan and Leandro Fernandez.
I need that book. Peter Milligan.
Did Old Guard.
Okay.
But this was like one of the first. This is gonna be really bad. This was like one of the first indie books that I ever remember reading and picking up. And I remember being enamored over the monster boinking. So if you read A Hellboy in Love and you are feeling a lack of monster boinking, please read The Discipline, because it has enough monster boinking for at least a good 5 years. There's a lot of monster boinking.
Okay, I need that book. That's how you sell a book to me.
That's how you sell a book to Jen.
The
you
monster
just tell her
fucks.
there's monster fucks.
Skip is asking, can we consider Casual Fling a horror book? That's literally horror and horniness. I would agree and disagree. I hate read that book a little bit.
I almost picked up that book yesterday in a $5 bin just for funsies.
You should have. That book, I read the first issue, loved it, and then kept picking up the issues, kept falling in love with it. And literally the last issue does something that I was like, I got to put this book down. And I couldn't finish it. So maybe I need to go and get the trade, because
maybe.
Okay.
Oh, look, I think somebody gave you a segue into your next book.
I literally I was like, okay, this is going to be my next book. So I had it on my lap. The Autumnal. A young woman goes back to her childhood town. I feel like this book is the better version of what Witches was trying to be by Scott Snyder.
Anybody who tells you Witches is a good book needs to evaluate life choices. I don't think Witches. I hate it. I hate it, Witches. But that's also because I kind of don't like Scott Snyder unless he's writing Dark Spaces Wildfire.
Oh my God. But this book is it's so cool. It's very gruesome. I love the artwork a lot on this one. I think what gets me with this isn't even necessarily the plot of the book. A lot of it is really just the character development. I really love the main character, how she interacts with her family as well as her past, and maybe some of the past that she has to go and deal with when she gets back to her hometown, along with the general spookiness and the bullshit that's going on. I really, really enjoyed the autumnal. Chris Sheehan and is it Michael Krause? Why am I blanking? Daniel Krause. Yep. What's your next book?
Speaking of Volt, These Savage Shores, which to this day I think is the best book that Volt Comics has ever published. I feel like this is the book that literally put them on the map.
Yeah.
So this is Ram
and
V.
Ram V.
Yep. So this one is Ram V and Sumit Kumar. And essentially what it is it's a bunch of colonizing vampires decide that they're going to try to colonize a section of the world, and they fuck around and they find out. Is that a good way to sell the book?
That is literally
I feel like a bunch of colonizing vampires fucked around and found out.
I feel kind of bad because Vault, if you're listening, I know you watch the show. I feel really bad for y'all because you need to go back and you need to do another printing of that book so you can put that as a pull quote. A bunch of colonizing vampires fuck around and find out.
And found out. This book is just it's great. It's fantastic. It's cultural. It's horrifying. It's romantic as fuck.
It is.
It's extreme. Like, you want gothic horror. You want the definition of what gothic horror should be. It's These Savage Shores. The fact that this hasn't even been optioned for an adaptation to me sounds fucking insane. I also feel like Vault may have or may not shot themselves in the foot with this book because they came out of the gates with this book. And I feel like it's one they should have held on to for a little while longer, because this is probably going to be the best book that they ever release.
Agreed. There's a lot of other Vault books that I really like.
There's a lot of other Vault books that we both really, really like and that I really enjoy. I mean, Autumnal that you just talked about is one of them. This The Savage Shores, this is masterclass storytelling when it comes to comics as a medium. This is how you
Agreed.
do comics.
Speaking of masterclass and how you do horror comics and maybe comics in general, one of my picks, I feel like this book is like on the list every year. And it's not just this book. When I talk about this book, it's this entire line. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. And that's going to be Afterlife with Archie. Listen, we need more Afterlife with Archie. Archie, as like a comics, like little digest, defined what comics were for so many people. And Afterlife with Archie, even though it was like the variant cover of Life with Archie that wasn't ever supposed to be, this book.
Yeah, Life with Archie, they did a horror variant. It got such well reception that they decided to make a whole story on it. And it essentially defines what pulp horror is. It takes that classic
Yes.
pulp horror vibes, the old monster movies, Night of the Living Dead, and just kind of combines everything that we know. This book at its core is a zombie book. But Afterlife with Archie has witches, it has Cthulhu, it has Norman Bates, it has werewolves, you name it. It has Josie and the Pussycats as vampires. And the fact that this book, because spoiler alert, this book ends on a cliffhanger, and spoiler alert, no, you will not be getting a continuation of it unless I march into Archie headquarters myself and demand them to continue this book. That's the only bad thing I can say about this book, is that it's unfinished.
Yep. So what they've done here, what they did with Sabrina, you mentioned Jughead the Hunger, Vampironica, Blossom 666, like anything in the Archie horror universe. If you have not set foot into this, and maybe you're like, Archie, why the fuck should that name be synonymous with horror? It is. It's too damn good, and you need to treat yourself.
Because the thing is, and I think the reason why it works is Archie and the characters as we know it, they're blank slates. They are caricatures of tropes, so you can craft and mold those tropes and put them into situations and into, different themes and in horror vibes, and do this and that with it and kind of mold it to what you will, because they are just blank characters that you can make what you want with them.
And you can put them in those situations that, like, they're younger, they're maybe more naive. So not only are they learning about the world, but then they have to deal with this like horrific stuff that's all of a sudden spooky stuff is happening around them.
Yep.
It's so
solid.
good.
It's good writing. Yeah. It's good writing. Yep. So I was going to say I have to have a vampire book on this list, but The Savage Shores is vampires. Something more than vampires. So let's kind of go back to generic vampires while still keeping the idea of vampires fresh. And that is Redneck by
Donny Cates.
Donny Cates, who, sometimes we don't get on the best of foot, but, Ryan Stegman's not involved. So I think we're cool at this point. So Redneck is essentially this group of vampires in the South. They seem to be like conservative, like Texans, Republicans, you name it. But they're vampires, and deep down, they're like very liberal vampires. And this probably has one of my favorite comic covers of all time, which says, I'm queer, I'm here, something around, or I'm fucking queer, I'm fucking here. It's one of my favorite comic
I'm queer,
covers.
I'm here. Wait, I'm here, I'm queer, I'm fucking undead, or something like that.
I'm fucking unstoppable. I don't know. Yeah. It's one of my favorite comic book covers, but I like this because it keeps the vampire genre fresh. I feel like if you like things like True Blood, where it's kind of like that southern vampire vibe, but it takes expectations and kind of flips them on their head. It takes those stereotypes and those tropes and kind of molds them and twists them to work for the story. It's really fun. And I really, really like this book, and I really like the characters that are in this book.
I agree. I think that there's some stereotypes about what it would be like to live as a vampire, but the vampires themselves don't feel like stereotypes. So that's what I like about it.
Exactly. It doesn't take those average stereotypes. So I've only got one more.
Okay. Well, shit. Okay, so the last book that I'm going to do is going to be Dark Blood. If you liked Lovecraft Country on HBO that came out in 2020, you will like Dark Blood. Basically, this young man returns from World War II, comes back to like the city or town that he lives in, comes back with powers, but it's also just really kind of like creepy and spooky, and not only dealing with the emergence of that, but dealing with like trauma. I think that this book goes hand in hand with Lovecraft Country, goes in hand with Bitterroot, goes in hand with Infidel. I really think that you would
And
like this.
Infidel's another really, really great solid horror book that
And
is scary because of how realistic it is.
exactly. And this one is done by Latoya Morgan, who I don't think that she's done much else. And honestly, for one of her first books, like this book, Dark Blood, absolutely blew me away. It's published by Boom. Check it out. Okay, what's your last book?
My last book that I have here is from AWA. This is Hotel. This is a nice listen. I've said it before. I think I even said it today. I feel like horror works best when it's in these nice little small format anthologies, because then the story is tight, it's concise. You know, we're jumping right into it, and we're not trailing too much after the fact. And I feel like Hotel does it perfectly because it takes the premise of this little motel out in the middle of nowhere
that like kind of mysteriously appears for those who like
kind of
need it.
Yeah, mysteriously appears for those who need it. But it combines like otherworldly horror with realistic horror that you can maybe see just beyond your door. And what I really like about Hotel is, while each issue is its own specific story, all of the stories in each volume, because there are 2 volumes at this point, and each one technically can be read separately.
Yeah.
Each story, while they are separate, they are actually connected and weave together. So at one point, you know, in one of the stories, we might be in a room and something is happening in the room and somebody can hear something on the other side of the wall. And then maybe in the next story or 2 stories later, we are taken through the wall and the story takes place maybe in the wall, and that character is doing something and makes a noise, and they can hear on the other side the person being like, well, what was that noise? What is going on?
Yep.
And I really like how they subtly weave it together, where unless you're really paying attention, you don't realize that these stories are being weaved together. This definitely gives, like, if you like things like American Horror Story, stories like that, I feel like you would really like a book like Hotel, and it just got options, so that's really, really exciting.
I think Skip in the chat mentioned it. If you like Silver Coin, if you like Ice Cream Man, if you like these horror anthologies that are like connected but like loosely connected, because that's one of my favorite things about Ice Cream Man, is that you still get the like Ice Cream Man who like pops up every now and then, and then issues will come through that, like, even though you can read each issue individually, they kind of like bring elements from a previous one or a storytelling device from a previous one and bring it into the next one. So good.
Really solid.
Well, I feel like if y'all just liked us fast talking about horror books, you should tune in every single week, because we talk about horror all the time. I know that like that's one of my favorite genres for books as well as comics. So
yeah,
we're here to talk comics, and we're here to talk horror.
Comics. We always talk comics, lots of comics, each and every week. Sometimes it's violent, sometimes it's not. Most of the times it's violent.
Most of the times. Mars, what else you got going on? Anything else you want to talk about?
Not much going on. Most of it is going to be putting away and reading through this massive stack of comics that I recently got. I'm excited for Halloween tomorrow. It's our first year in the apartment, so we decorated our little patio and made it cute and spooky, and I'm really hoping that little children are willing to walk up to the 3rd floor to pick up candy, because otherwise we're screwed because we have a big bag of candy. But I'm excited. It's spooky time.
You can always eat that candy for later.
This is true. I shouldn't, but this is true.
I live in an apartment complex, but we don't get like kids here or anything. But I am going to go to a showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show tomorrow night. So even though Rocky Horror Picture Show has been one of my favorite things ever and defined an era of middle school for me, weirdly enough, where I would go home every single day, pop in the VHS of Rocky Horror Picture Show, I wore that thing ragged. I've never
Mhm.
seen it live, so I cannot wait to go see it live. I plan on like either dressing up in costume or dressing up as one of the characters and interacting. I'm so excited.
That's very exciting.
So thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for putting up with us.
Mhm.
If you are a queer or trans person anywhere, I'm here for you, but especially right now, my heart goes out to my Florida family. So please stay here. We love you.
We need you.
We need you. We need you as your full, authentic self. And we can't wait to see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.